Morning students. Last class we started with a new lesson, that is Silk Road, and we learned that the narrator and his with his friends were leaving to Rao. So he was heading towards Mount Kailash. They are leaving Rao and going towards the Mount Kailash and his experiences in the traveling. Let us continue. We finally reached the top of the pass at 5,515 meters. It was marked by a large cairn of rocks. Cairn of rocks means heap of stones, festooned with white silk scarves and ragged prayer flags. That means festooned with means decorated with scarves. Scarves means clothes for wrapping the neck. Scarf you all know. And ragged means stone, prayer flags. So they reached the top of the height. Etra height inde mudiletti 5,515 meters. That was completely covered by rocks and decorated with what? Silk color scarves. And they are torn with what else also? Prayer flags also. We all took a turn round the cairn. The cairn is a pile of stones. ഒരുപാട് സ്റ്റോൺസിൻ്റെ ഇടയിൽ നിന്ന് ടേൺ ചെയ്തു in a clockwise direction as it is the tradition. അതായിരുന്നു അവിടുത്തെ ട്രഡീഷൻ. Clockwise direction they have to turn. And Tyson checked the tires on his vehicle. Tyson was worried about the vehicle, condition of the vehicle. He stopped at the petrol tank and partially unscrewed the top, which emitted a loud hiss. Then the sound was produced by the vehicle, that is the hissing sound. The lower atmospheric pressure was allowing the fuel to expand. It sounded dangerous to me. Maybe sir, Tyson laughed, but no smoking. So you don't have to worry sir, it's just because it is on the higher atmospheric pressure, that's why. So Author was very much worried because there is a tendency to the fuel to expand. But who was not tensed? Tyson was just laughing, and he said that there was no smoke. My headache soon cleared as we careered down. Careered down means moved down. So he was coming down. What was that? They were coming down the hill. The other's headache was also stopped. The other side of the pass. It was 2 o'clock by the time we stopped for lunch. Then 2 o'clock lunch break was there. We ate hot noodles inside a long canvas tent, part of a work camp erected beside a dry salt lake. Salt lake in അടുത്തുണ്ടായിരുന്ന ടെമ്പററി ആയിട്ടുള്ള ഒരു ക്യാമ്പിനകത്താണ് ഇവരിന്ന് ഫുഡ് കഴിച്ചത്. The plateau is pockmarked. Pockmarked means what? Covered with salt flats. Salt flats means shallow salt water. And brackish lakes. Brackish means sore lakes. Vestiges means ruins of the Tethys Ocean, which bordered Tibet before the great continental collision that lifted it skyward. പണ്ടുണ്ടായിരുന്ന Tethys Ocean അതിന്റെ presence ആണ് കാണിച്ചിരുന്നത്. This one was a heave center of activity. Men with pickaxes. Pickaxe you all know. Pickaxe we use in order to dig the soil, and shovels is spades. Trudging means walking back and forth in their long sheepskin coats and salt encrusted boots. The people who were wearing sheepskin coats and what type of shoes? They are salt encrusted boots. ഐസിൽ നടക്കാൻ വേണ്ടി യൂസ് ചെയ്യുന്ന സ്പെഷ്യൽ ഷൂസ് ഒക്കെ ഇട്ടിട്ട്. And they were also carrying what else? Pickaxes and shovels. All wore sunglasses. അപ്പോൾ ഈ ഹൈ ആറ്റിറ്റ്യൂഡിൽ പോയി കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ we are supposed to wear what? Sunglasses, because it can spoil your eyesight. So they were all wearing sunglasses against the glare as a steady stream of blue trucks emerged from the blindingly white lake laden with piles of salt. It is because they have to save their eyes from what? From the sunlight. By late afternoon, we had reached the small town of Hor. Afternoon കഴിഞ്ഞപ്പോഴത്തേക്കും they reached Hor എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞ സ്ഥലത്ത്. Back on the main east-west highway that followed the old trade route from Lhasa to Kashmir. അതേത് ഹൈവേ ആയിരുന്നു? ലാസ ടു കാശ്മീർ. Daniel, who was returning to Lhasa, found a ride in a truck. So Tizan and I bade him farewell outside a tire repair shop. Tire repair shop in വെച്ച് ഡാനിയലിന് farewell ഒക്കെ പറഞ്ഞു. We had suffered 2 punctures in quick succession. Succession means one by one. On the drive down from the Salt Lake, and Tizan was eager to have them fixed since they left him with no spares. 2 ടയർ പങ്ക്ചർ ആയപ്പോൾ ഡിസാന് ടെൻഷനായി, ഒരു സ്പെയർ ടയർ ഇല്ല. സോ they were visiting the tire shop in order to get it punctured. Besides the second tire, he had had been replaced by one that was as smooth as my bald head. So another tire was in a very bad condition. It is compared to the other's bald head. Kashandi kariya thala poleyarunnu. Means Hor was a grim means dull and miserable place. The Hor was not a very good place. It was a dull place. There was no vegetation. Greenery ഉണ്ടായിരുന്നില്ല whatsoever, just dust and rocks liberally scattered with years of accumulated refuse, which was unfortunate given that the town sat on the shore of Lake Mansarovar. മാനസരോവറിന്റെ അടുത്ത് ഇത്രയും ഒരു സ്ഥലത്ത് ഇത്രയും ഡൾ ആയിട്ടൊരു പ്ലേസ്, മനസ്സിലായല്ലോ? There was no vegetation. Why that place is called dull? Why that Hor was called dull? Because there was no vegetation. Only what was there? Dust and rocks were there, and it was liberally a lot of rocks were there. And unfortunate, it's very unfortunate that this town sat on the shore of ഏതിന്റെ അടുത്താണത്? ലേക്ക് മാൻസരോവറിന്റെ അടുത്ത് ഇത്രയും ഒരു പ്ലേസ് അവരെ പ്രതീക്ഷിച്ചില്ല, അത്രയും ഡള്ളായിട്ട് സ്ഥലം പ്രതീക്ഷിച്ചില്ല. And Tibet's most venerated stretch, venerated means respected stretch of water. Ancient Hindu and Buddhist cosmology is science of universe, pinpoints means describes exactly Mansarovar as the source of 4 great Indian rivers. 4 വലിയ റിവറുകളുടെ എന്താണ്? സോഴ്സ് ഓഫ് വാട്ടർ ആണ് ഏത്? മാൻസരോവർ എന്ന് പറയുന്നത്. ഏതൊക്കെയാണോ? ഒന്ന് ദ ഇൻഡസ്, ഗാഞ്ചസ്, the Satluj and the Brahmaputra. All these 4 rivers getting water from where? From the Lake Mansarovar. Actually, only the Satluj flows from the lake, but the headwaters means origins of the others all rise nearby on the flanks of Mount Kailash. ബാക്കിയുള്ളതെല്ലാം എവിടുന്നാ വരുന്നത്? മൗണ്ട് കൈലാഷിൽ നിന്നാണ് വരുന്നത്. We were within striking distance of the great mountain, and I was eager to forge ahead. Forge ahead means Mount Kailash nadutatti. But who was so eager to move forward? The other was very eager to move forward. Forge ahead means move ahead. But I had to wait. Tizan told me to go and drink some tea and Hor's only cafe, which like all the other buildings in town was constructed from badly painted concrete and had 3 broken windows. അവിടെ ഉണ്ടായിരുന്ന ഹോളിലുണ്ടായിരുന്ന ഒരു കഫേ, ഒരു കോഫി ഷോപ്പ്, അവിടെ എങ്ങനെയാണ് അത് ഉണ്ടാക്കിയിരിക്കുന്നത്? 3 broken windows ആണ്, വളരെ badly constructed ആണ്. The good view of the lake through one of them helped to compensate for the drought. Drought means dry spell. Author had gone to drink tea, even though that area was not so good, but still the view of lake had given him some happiness. I was served by a Chinese youth in military uniform who spread the grease around on my table with a filthy rag before bringing me a glass and thermos of tea. Before serving tea, the boy, who was that? He was a Chinese boy. What did he do? He just cleaned the table. It was a very dirty cloth he used in order to clean the table. Then he served a glass. In a glass, tea. He brought the thermos also. Half an hour later, Tizan relieved me from my solitary confinement. So after half an hour, Tizan reached. Solitary means lonely. Confinement means imprisonment. And we drove past a lot more rocks and rubbish westwards out of town towards Mount Kailash. Now they are going towards Mount Kailash. They were passing a lot of rocks. My experience in Hor came as a stark contrast. Stark means complete contrast to the accounts he had read, because he had read about it in a different way and his experience was different. I had read of earlier travelers' first encounters with Lake Mansarovar. Eikai Kawaguchi, is a Japanese monk who had arrived there in 1900, was so moved by the sanctity. Sanctity means sacredness of the lake that he burst into tears. What did he do? Actually, he was filled with the tears when he had seen what the Lake Mansarovar. And a couple of years later, the hallowed means purified waters had a similar effect. Then the purification done. Then who had an effect on Sivan Hedin, says Swede, who was not prone to sentimental outbursts. Who was not prone. Not prone means not inclined to sentimental outbursts, means explosions. It was dark by the time we finally left again, and after 10:30 p.m. we drew up outside a guest house. Then they started going towards where? A guest house in Darchen for what turned out to be another trouble night. That was a trouble night, kicking around in the open air rubbish dump that passed for the town of Horde and had set off my cold once more, because then he was feeling very cold, though if truth be told, it had never quite disappeared with my herbal tree, even though he had herbal tree, but it didn't help him. One of my nostrils, one of his nose was blocked again, and I lay down to sleep. It was not convinced that the other would provide me some sufficient oxygen. It was very difficult for him to sleep because the other nostril, one nose was blocked, the other could not provide him much oxygen. My watch told me I was at 4,760 meters. It was not much higher than Rao, and there I had been gasping for oxygen. He was literally struggling to get oxygen, trying to catch oxygen several times every night. I had grown accustomed to these nocturnal disturbances. Nocturnal means of the night by now, but they still scared me. I was quite used to it. Tired and hungry. He was very tired and hungry. I started breathing through my mouth. After a while, I switched to single nostril power, which seemed to be admitting enough oxygen. But just as I was drifting off, being swept, I woke up abruptly. Suddenly I got up. Something was wrong. My chest felt strangely heavy. Chest heaviness feel, and I sat up. A movement that cleared my nasal passages almost instantly and relieved the feeling in my chest. Curious, I thought. So suddenly what happened? Nose block was removed and he felt light at his chest. I lay back down and tried again. Same result. I was on the point of disappearing into the land of Node when something told me not to. It must have been those emergency electrical impulses again. Impulses means strong feelings. But this was not the same as the previous occasions. This time I was not grasping for breath. I was simply not allowed to go to sleep. He was grasping to breathe. Now it was not allowing him to sleep. He could not sleep at all. Sitting up once more immediately made me feel better. Again he sat up. He could not sleep. I could breathe freely and my chest felt fine. But as soon as I lay down, my sinuses filled and my chest was old. Suddenly, sinus, you all know, the forehead is to be filled, isn't it? And he was feeling very uncomfortable. I tried propping. Propping means supporting myself upright against the wall. But now I could not manage to relax enough to drop off. I could not put my finger on the reason, but I was afraid to go to sleep, because oxygen is very less in those that much of height. A little voice inside me was saying that if I did, I might never wake up again. അയാളുടെ മനസ്സിലിരുന്ന് ആരോ പറയുന്നത് പോലെ തോന്നി അയാൾക്ക്. എന്താണ്? ഞാനിപ്പോൾ ഉറങ്ങിക്കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ എനിക്ക് രാവിലെ എണീക്കാൻ പറ്റില്ല. So I stayed awake all night. Because of his fear, he could not sleep. Tizan took me to Darchen Medical College the following morning. The doctor The medical college at Darchen was new and looked like a monastery from the outside, with a very solid door that led into a large courtyard. We found the consulting room, which was dark and cold and occupied by a a Tibetan doctor who wore none of the paraphernalia. Paraphernalia means personal equipment that I had been expecting. He thought that it's very cold there, that the doctor must be wearing so many clothes. But no, his expectations were wrong. No white coat. He was not even wearing that doctor's coat. He looked like any other Tibetan with a thick pullover. Pullover is the sweater, and woolly hat, woolen hat he was wearing. When I explained my sleepless symptoms and my sudden aversion is dislike to lying down, he shot me a few questions while feeling the veins in my wrist. He was just catching his veins and wrist check ചെയ്തിട്ട് questions ചോദിച്ചു. എന്തൊക്കെയായിരുന്നു? It is so cold, he said finally through. Tisan, a cold and effects of altitude. I will give you something for it. Heightened effect ആയിരുന്നു അദ്ദേഹത്തിന്റെ ആ uncomfortableness. I asked him if he thought I would recover enough to be able to do to Kora. Oh yes, he said, you will be fine. Doctor പറഞ്ഞതൊരു അസുഖമൊന്നുമല്ല, you will be fine, all right. I walked out of the medical college clutching means holding tightly, a brown envelope stuffed with 15 screws of paper. I had a 5-day course of Tibetan medicine, 5 course medicine ഉണ്ടായിരുന്നു, which I started right away. ഒരു കവറിനകത്ത് നിറച്ച് മെഡിസിനുമായിട്ടാണ് അദ്ദേഹം പോയത്. I opened an after breakfast package and found it contained a brown powder that I had take with hot water. അതിന് ഉള്ളിൽ ടാബ്ലറ്റ് അല്ലായിരുന്നു, brown color powder. He had it with hot water. It tastes just like cinnamon. The contents of the lunchtime and bedtime packages were less obviously identifiable. Same color ആയിരുന്നു. Both contained small spherical brown pellets. Pellets means small balls. They look suspiciously like sheep dung. അത് കണ്ടാൽ എന്തുപോലെ തോന്നും? Sheep dung പോലെ തോന്നും. But of course, I took them. That night, after my first full day's course, I slept very soundly. Then he got a nice sleep, like a log, not a dead man. ഇതുപോലെ തടിക്കഷ്ണം പോലെ ഞാൻ കിടന്ന് ഉറങ്ങി. Once he saw that I was going to leave, Tizan left me to return to Lhasa. As a Buddhist, he told me he knew that it didn't really matter if I passed away, but he thought it would be bad for business. It was so simple, isn't it? He said that it doesn't matter him if the other passed away, dies. But only thing is he will lose money. So Darchen did not look so horrible after a good night's sleep. It was still dusty, partially derelict, and punctuated by heaps of rubble. And refuse. The sun shone brilliantly in a clear blue sky, and the outlook across the plain I hope you understood the rest of the lessons. We will do the next class. Thank you.